Business 130, Business Ethics, Chapter 6, A Coyote Story for Business Ethics Pedagogy. There are many stories that involve animals, which are used to show various kinds of relationships in the web of all life. This story comes essentially from the Plains Indian culture. So I'm going to read you a coyote story here. This story begins with Coyote going along and Coyote having a tendency to want to look at everything. And they look at details, and they're always looking at different kinds of features in the landscape. And they're always looking for food because they're always hungry. And so Coyote is going along and he's looking for food, and he bumps into a tree. And in the tree there is a raven that sees that this crazy coyote bumped into this tree. He's almost knocked me out of this tree, and this is my tree. And of course, the coyote uses some very defamatory language and says, well, I don't care. This is my space. I'm going to use it the way that I want to. And then the raven says, I notice that you're looking for food, and you know what? The best way to look for food is just pluck your eyes out and hold them in front of you so you can see further. And then you can see around you and above you. And Coyote, being Coyote and being so zealous in finding food, plucks his own eyes out. And he starts to use his eyes to look in different places, but bumps into the tree again. And at this time, as he bumps into the tree, his eyes fall out of his hands and they go rolling around. So all of a sudden he's blind because he's lost his eyes. And so he begins groping and groping and groping, and he keeps bumping into the tree and falling down. And of course, Raven is just laughing at him because Raven tricked him into taking his eyes out and teaching him a lesson that you have to have an understanding of the whole as much as you have an understanding of the detail. So that's kind of the big moral or the lesson. Eventually, Raven tells him where his eyes have rolled and where to find his eyes, but he makes Coyote pay dearly for that information. And I think that lesson is a really good lesson for the way we tend to operate in the world and where we look at where we look at details, but we forget about the whole. We forget about our impact, and as we move around looking for food and looking for sustenance, looking for business, if you will. And so I think that tale really epitomizes the situation that we tend to find ourselves in as we look at these very complex formulas for doing business, which are very detailed. We forget about the impact of that action and the impact on society as well as the impact on all the other life forms as seen through the indigenous worldview. The coyote story is about how many times people focus so closely on the details that they forget about the whole picture. They don't have a sense of those impacts that their behavior or words or actions may have with regard to that greater or larger goal. Many times business is like the coyote. So there are many stories that involve animals that indigenous people use. So this lesson provided by the indigenous storytelling are deeply embedded in the rich context. And that is it for chapter 6.